Greetings everyone, this is Non-Expert here and welcome to the first episode of the series where we're going to try to solve daily coding problems. If you're not familiar with what daily coding problem is, it's basically a mailing list which sends out one question every single day to your mail. It's free to join, and if you've not joined it yet, I would urge you to join it. They have not sponsored me, and it's not me promoting them, but it's definitely a great way for you to, not lose practice with algorithmic questions. All right, cool. So first video of this entire series, and as I mentioned before, what we're going to try to do is we are going to try to solve daily coding problems. So I've subscribed for about 3 to 4 months now, and I'm pretty happy with the results. And it sort of allowed me to, get back to the roots of how to solve questions. I've been working for about 3 years now, and I've noticed this that, as soon as you lose touch with those sort of questions, you sort of lose touch with a lot of other things as well. Um, and this can be used for both professional as well as college students. So if you've not again subscribed to this mailing list, I would urge you to do it. It's completely free, and all it's doing is just helping you out. The way we're going to sort of progress with this entire series is we're going to go through a question, and what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to look for an online editor, like Leetcode or HackerRank, which has a similar type of question, and then we're going to try to solve it through that. Do note that there might be a scenario where the question is not exactly the same as whatever is given in the platform, um, but the entire logic on how we need to implement our solution is primarily going to be the same. And since we're using an online editor, it's going to be even better for us because all the test cases would be handled, and if there's any edge cases that we missed out, we would get to know about them at that particular moment of time itself. So the way I would urge you to go about this is before we start with the okay, so first thing that you need to do is you need to subscribe to the mailing list, and the second thing that you want to do is you want to try to solve the question on your own. So in the link, there will be a description given in the link, and just try to click on it, try to solve it on your own. And if you're not able to, then try to go through the solution, and that will sort of give you an understanding on how to progress with solutions. All right, cool. So let's get on with it. All right, so this is the first problem statement that we have here. And problem statement states that given a list of numbers and a number k, return whether any two numbers from the list add up to k. So for example, given a list of integers like 10, 15, 3, and 7, and k, which is basically our target, is equal to 7. In that case, we need to return a boolean, which is true, since 10 plus 7 is 17, since we have both 10 and 7. Uh, and that's the value. So we need to return true in those cases, and all the other cases we can return false. Um, so this is a pretty easy problem, but what we're going to try to do is we're going to try, for all easy problems, we're going to try to get the bonus question also out of the way, which is stating that we want to do this in one pass. Do note here that the list which we have is not sorted. So, we can't just, do an iteration from the first and, just keep two pointers and just go from first and last. That would have been possible if it's sorted, and we can't use a sorting algorithm right now because that's most likely two loops. And we want to do this in one loop itself. So I have sort of formed this problem in Leetcode, and the name of the problem is called twosum. Again, you can visit the link in the description below. Uh, and the problem statement is just a little bit different than the one given. So instead of returning a Boolean value, we're sort of expecting the function to return the indexes. So you can read the problem description here, pause the video and read it on your own. But the idea is still the same, that if you have a list of integers, you want to set a target value which is equal to something, and you want to return the indexes of those values. And if that particular thing does not exist, then you probably want to return -1 and -1. All right, cool. So let's get on with the solution. And do remember that we want to do this in one pass, and that's the best practice for this as well. Um, all right, so the first thing which I most likely do whenever I want to progress with the solution is that I want to handle all the base conditions. And the base conditions don't need to be really complex, they can be really easy. And what to do for most of the candidates in the interview is that even if they get stuck for a while, Just write in the base conditions, just give them a flow, and that flow just allows them to progress further. So if you're ever stuck in an interview, if there's a person who's asked you a question and you're not able to understand how to progress with it, I would just say just write the base conditions first, and that will just get you on with the flow, and then you can move forward from there. All right, cool. So our base condition here is going to be very, very simple. We just want to check whether nums is empty or whether it exists and whether a target value exists or not, right? So we're coding this in Python. You can do this in JavaScript or C or C++ or Java. I don't know why you would want to do that, but even if you want to do that, that's your choice. The formulation is still going to be the same. So we just want to check whether nums is empty, and the way we can do this is we can just say if not nums, and also we want to check whether the target value is none or not. So in these cases, what we want to do is we just want to return -1 and -1, and that's it, right? So we're done with the base conditions, and next thing that we want to do is we want to maintain a hash map of all the visited items. Call it a hash map, call it a dictionary, but this dictionary is going to contain the key as the value of the elements which we have already gone through, which we've already visited, and the value inside the dict is going to be the index. So that way we will be able to maintain whatever we have visited and also what was the index at which we had visited this value, right? So let's get on with it. Let's just write something called as visited. This is our dictionary. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to use something called as an enumerate. So if you're not familiar with what an enumerate is, it's basically a Python function which sort of returns a list of tuples where the first element is the index and the second element is the value. So it's basically a for loop. It's just returning your index and the value. And it's pretty simplistic. If you don't know about it, just Google it. But all it's doing is it's just returning us the ith value and also the I value. What's the number? What's the index number, right? So that's what we're going to get in index, and that is what we're going to get inside the element. All right, cool. So let's get on with it. The first thing which we want to do is we want to make sure that uh, what our visited value is. So let's just, before we sort of do the if conditions, what we can do is we can just paste in the visited value. This is just how you want to code it out. The way I like to code it out is I just like to say that if target minus val is in the visited dictionary, then basically we just want to return um, the index. Sorry, the index would be the second thing. We just want to return what's there inside um, visited target minus val and the index as well, right? And let's just maintain a hash map. Let's want to do that. And again, the key is going to be the value which we have already encountered. Uh, And the second thing which we're going to do is we're just going to return -1 to -1 if nothing goes through. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to iterate through all the elements one by one, and we're going to keep on pushing them inside our dictionary. Uh, and before we sort of do that, we're going to do this small computation where we're going to check whether target value minus the value which we've encountered is equal to this is already present inside the visited dictionary or not. If it is, then just return the value and then we're done with it. So it's pretty simplistic. There's not much here to do. It's pretty self-explanatory. And let's just try to run it. Let's see if this runs. Taking a little bit of time. Oh, one more thing. If you've not logged in to or signed up to Leetcode, I would urge you to do that. You can't run your solutions without doing that, so just go ahead and do that as well. And yeah, it seems to be running fine for us. Everything is good. We've not changed anything. And let's just try submitting it. Let's see what happens when you submit it. All right, cool. So our solution is faster than A7 of the Python submissions, and since it's using some memory, it's less than 50%, which is okay because memory is not really a constraint for us right now. What we were sort of taking care of is that we wanted to do this in one loop, and that's how we've been able to accomplish that. So it's pretty simplistic. You're just looking for two values which equal to a particular sum, and whenever you visit a particular element, you're just just saying that, hey, I visited this element, store it inside this dictionary or a hash map, whatever convention that you're okay with, and just store the index as the value and just move on from there. All right, cool. Pretty simplistic for now. We'll try to solve one more problem. Just because this problem was pretty easy, we'll try to solve one more problem, and this is the this is the second daily coding problem. So let's just go through it once. It states, okay, so this question was actually asked in Uber, and it states that given an integer array of integers, return a new array such that each element at index I of the new array is the product of all the numbers in the original array except the one at I. So pretty big mouthful, but makes a little bit of sense. Uh, the example which is given here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the expected output is 120, 60, 40, 30, 24. Uh, and again 3, 2, 1, and the output is 2, 3, 6. You can pause this video and try to go through this problem description, okay? But I'll just give you a quick description of what they're asking us to do. Basically, what they're saying is that for each of the elements, right, you want to update each element by multiplying all the other elements which are there inside the array. So if you multiply 2, 3, 4, 5, you get the value as 120. Same thing here. If you sort of skip 2 and multiply everything on the left hand side of 2 and all the things on the right hand side, you get 3, 4, 5 into 1, which is basically 60. So you've updated to 60, and that's how we're sort of moving on from here. So basically, multiply that element with all those things except for the value itself. This is pretty easy to do. This is an easy problem, to be very honest. But uh, okay, so I'll tell you why this is so easy. The reason why it's so easy is that you can just multiply all the elements in one shot, right? Get a value, and basically on each of the elements, you just need to update the element by just saying, hey, if my multiplication value is x, I just want to say x divided by the element at that source. It's what's going to be there, right? So in that case, we can do if this entire thing is multiplied, when multiplied is actually equal to 120. So this will be 120 divided by 1, which is 120, 120 divided by 2, which is 60, 120 divided by 3, which is 40, 120 divided by 4, which is 30, and so on and so forth, right? But the reason why this problem is actually hard is because of the follow-up which is here, which is stating that you cannot use division. Now, this thing becomes a little tricky now because you cannot use division, and the way we sort of explained this problem was that you had to multiply everything together. Alright, cool. So let's just go through the online editor in which we can sort of try to solve this problem. Alright, and we found a problem. It's on Leetcode. I sort of solved it already. I'll try to go through this description on how I try to solve it. Uh, but yeah, this problem is called product of array except self. I think it's a better name. And the same description, you can sort of follow through it, and they have also made the same uh, thing. They've given the same constraint that you cannot use division here. So we're supposed to do this without any division. All right, and the way we're going to go about this is okay, and also let's just look at this guy. Like, could you solve it without constant space, complexity? Okay, sorry, with constant space, complexity, and the output array does not count as extra space. So basically, the hint that they're giving us is that don't use any visited arrays or anything like that, visited sorry, dictionaries. But what you can do is you can create another thing called as an output array and just use that and move forward with it, right? All right, cool. So once again, we're going to start with the same way that we solved before. We're going to start with the base conditions. So we're just going to say if not norms, we'll say return of an empty. Listen, yeah, cool. Works well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create something called as an output. Output is basically going to be our resultant array. And the way we want to progress with this is we want to do two traversals. The first traversal is going to go from index 1 to n minus 1. That's going to be from front to back. Oh, sorry, yeah, from the very starting to the very end. And the next iteration which we're going to do is from the very end to the very start. And the reason why we're doing this is if you sort of multiply all those things with the previous value, right, or whatever the previous value was encountered, you're basically maintaining whatever was there from the left hand side and then just move forward from there. Um, it makes it a little difficult for me to understand, for me to explain this, and you guys would be facing a little bit of problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a few more console statements here and there, just so that you get the flow of what I'm trying to do. Also, it might help me out just to understand whether I'm going in the right direction or not. All right, cool. So we've got two variables here. One is the output array, and the second thing is the previous. Now, previous is going to be equal to 1, and what we're going to do is previous is basically going to maintain value which we had previously multiplied with. I hope that makes sense. Let's do it real quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from the first index to the very last index, right? Um, and the reason why we're doing this is basically we want to skip the first element, right? And I'll explain it why as well. It's just because we want to multiply the previous value with the value next to it. So let's just update previous. Previous is going to be equal to previous into nums I minus 1. And what we're going to do is we're just going to append it inside our output array. So I'm just going to print the output here just for now, just to show it to you how it's running. This is not the solution right now. We just went through one iteration. We have to do two iterations, as I mentioned before. So as you can see here, what we're doing is we're just multiplying all these values, right, with the values which were previous to it. So if you have 1, you're just multiplying it with 1, and you're just updating the output array, which is 1. Then you multiply it with the value before it, which is 2. So 2 into 1 is 2, and then previous becomes 2 as well. And then again, you just multiply 2 into 3, which is equal to 6, right? And the way, again, the reason why we're doing this is because basically what this is helping us maintain is the left side. If I go from, let's say, all the elements backwards to it, that's the value which I've gone through. So if you can look at it, you can see what are the values what will be the outcome of this particular value if I multiply everything before it. So this is going to be 1, right? And this is going to be equal to 2, so that's what's updated here. 4 is equal to 3 into 2 into 1, and that's 6. So basically, we've been able to maintain something like this due to that. And now what we need to do is, since we have all the things which are on the left side, now we want all the things which are on the right side, whatever things which are there after the element, right? So let's just do that real quick. And the way to do this is that we're going to do our iterations from the second last element. We don't want to include the last element, we want to include the second last element. Again, it's explained before, it's the same logic. If the syntax seems a little weird to you, this is basically us doing for I equal to n minus 1, or sorry, n minus 2 till 0. That's what we're trying to do over here. This is the way, the Pythonic way of doing it, so don't be don't get scared because of this. Oh, and one thing which we forgot to do is we want to reinitialize the value of previous. So actually, previous is not the right word here. It should be next, but let's just make it previous just for the sake of consistency. And what we're going to do is we want all the values which were basically we want to maintain all the values which were multiplied after the value which was there. So nums I plus 1 is what we're going to try to maintain. And now, basically, inside the output array, we want to update the output array by just multiplying it with the previous value. And what it's eventually helping us do is basically it's just saying that, hey, I am maintaining all the values which are secondary to it. So that's what's happening. If it doesn't make sense, you can pause the video and do another dry run on your own. But basically, what we've done is we've maintained the previous value in such a way that it's multiplying all the values after the value. So if we are on 3, we've maintained 4, right? Because there's nothing after 4, so that's the previous value. And basically, this thing is going to get multiplied with the previous value. So ideally what you're doing is you're just skipping everything except for the value itself. Another way to do this is just by using two for loops, but we want our code to be as optimal as possible because we're doing this for Uber, right? So we want to do it in open complexity. Otherwise, one of the things which you can have done is that we could have just ran two iterations where we just say for I to all the way in index and basically get from there. But this is the way that we're going to approach it. It seems pretty good for now. Let's try running it. And it's running, it's judging, and it seems to be working fine. So cool. So let's just try some it. And let's hope it works. Awesome, it works and it's faster than 92%. This the reason why it's faster is basically most of the people who have solved this problem they would have used an approach which just says um, to to iterate through all the elements after and before it and multiply them together. But this way sort of helps us do it in one iteration. That's the reason why it's so fast. Um, and awesome, cool. So I think we're done for this particular video. Again, I want to thank you so much for visiting this video. If you have any comments, if you want me to solve any other particular problem, you can leave it in the comments below. If you have any suggestions for me, if you want me to approach a problem in a different way, let me know. If you want me to add some comments, or if there's something that I'm missing out, I'm open to any type of criticism. And thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. If you could just like and subscribe, that would just give me more and more motivation to put out more videos for you guys. And again, the way you want to try to do this is basically you want to go through the problem on your own before you start going through the video. So whenever I start with the solution, I would suggest that you pause the video. But if you don't have time, if you just want to see how other people are doing it, that's also okay. I don't have any problems with it. And if you're a fresher, if you're directly going to go into these interviews, I would just suggest that don't be too scared. Just try to start with something and get the base formulation out. Most simplistic, but what I've seen with most of the candidates, I've done a lot of interviews, I've given a lot of interviews, and I've taken a lot of interviews. What I've seen is that most people get stuck just because they get a little bit scared and they're not able to write anything down. So this is the approach that I would suggest for everybody. And again, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. Again, this is a discussion, so please feel free to give any comments. And we are out. Thank you.